Hi, this is Sam Lagana with the Los Angeles Rams. Whose house? You're listening to the Los Angeles Rams UK podcast. Undenied worldwide. The Los Angeles Rams. It doesn't get any better than this. Let's go Rams!
Good evening, welcome to another episode of the LA Rams UK podcast, episode 110, The Lion's Share. I'm John, and joining me as always is Andy and Tony. How you doing, guys?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Yourself?
I'm not bad. How's your week been, guys? You been happy that football's finally back?
Oh yeah, definitely, 100%.
Makes life worth living, doesn't it?
It does a little bit, although the late nights, early mornings, as you get older, start to catch up with you a little bit.
They do indeed. I think we've all enjoyed a good 6-7 months of actually having sleep on a Sunday night, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly.
And then here we go, week one, boom, prime time game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, couldn't have gone on a worse way. Could have gradually built us into it. Just chucked us in at the deep end and went right off you go.
Well, give us a 6 o'clock game, kind of phases in it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so here tonight, folks, to talk the overtime loss to the Lions in Detroit. Tony, initial thoughts on the game. Just looking at our predictions, all three of us, folks, did predict that we were going to lose this match. Surprised, Tony, that we got beat, or I know we predicted, I suppose, but did you expect it to go any better given how the pre-season went?
It's probably the happiest I've felt after a loss for a long time, to be honest. And looking at how we played, I don't think we could have done much more. Obviously, losing Puka Nacua early on didn't help, but I thought we played pretty well, and I think it bodes well for the season.
Andy, what was your initial thoughts?
My initial thoughts were, what the heck are the overtime rules? Both teams get a touching off, in the playoffs. So why isn't it like that through the rest of the season? It's kind of a bit more fair. But as Tony said, we were competitive throughout. Even with the injury starting to stack up as the game went on, and a dropped pick, we could have potentially walked out of this game with a W.
Yeah, if Durant had held on to that could have been the game for us. I actually agree with yourself about the overtime rule. So I just picked up on the 15 minutes of highlights, and I knew it went to overtime. So we've seen the highlights, and then just seen overtime highlights. They've got the ball, they score, and I thought, right, what happened was did we go 4 and out or what? And I actually then went and checked the drive summary and seen that we were missing, and then realised that the whole each team gets a possession is playoff only. And I have seen quite a few people actually come out and say that you need to make it consistent across the season. There's no point doing it for the playoffs to be fair, but through the regular season it's first to score wins.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Deciding the game on a coin toss is just not on. They stopped it for the playoffs. They should be stopping it full stop now, and it should just be everybody gets a possession, and let it do its thing.
Yep. Tony, you said that your initial thoughts in the game was we were actually quite, despite the loss, quite happy. What was it about the Rams' performance that you were quite, upbeat and positive about?
I don't think there's any specifics. It's always good to see Cooper Kupp back and put in some numbers. I think the team played well, to be fair. Matthew Stafford looks up for it. Yeah, we can put that down a little bit to it being in Detroit again. And I don't know. It feels as though there's a team there, and it feels as though people are working for each other. And I'm really looking forward to this weekend against the Cardinals again. It was all positive, to be honest, apart from despite the loss.
Yeah. Well, you touched upon it there. Cooper Kupp, seemed to be back to his Cup ways based on his performance last year. He had 2 carries for 10 yards, but also 14 for 110 yards and a touchdown. It was more like the Cooper Kupp we expect to see, isn't it, Andy?
Yeah, it is. I think last season, coming back from the injury, he was probably rushed back. He was never 100% fit and healthy. I think we're starting to see a fit and healthy Cup again. And obviously, with us, unfortunately, losing Nakua to injury, I think some of the targets were starting to get funneled through him again. But, overall, if that's what we're going to get this season from Cup, then, I think as Tony said, we will have overall a productive season out of the team. And, Stafford, again, that connection with him and Stafford seems to have really picked up again straight away.
Yep. Like you said, Tony, Matthew Stafford seemed quite up for it. 34 for 49, 317 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Just looked like he seemed to have kind of picked up where he's left off, really, from last season. Obviously, with the way the playoff game went in Detroit, do you feel like he had a kind of point to prove, given the way it came out after the game, the way the kind of like the fans in Detroit treated him in the playoff loss? Do you feel like he had a point to prove in this game?
No, I don't think Matthew Stafford has to prove any points at all to anybody. There's been the usual chat before the game last week about who won the trade.
Yeah.
I'm like, both teams were improved by that trade. Matthew Stafford got the Super Bowl he deserves for the length of time he's been a quality quarterback. And I honestly don't think he needs to prove himself to anybody. He's done that. Everything now is just icing on the cake. If he can get another bite of the cherry by getting deep into the playoffs again, all's good. But no, I don't think he needs to prove himself to Detroit fans or the Detroit franchise at all. And he's certainly proved himself to Rams fans.
Yeah, certainly. Like in his first game alone, I would say, when we had played Chicago and SoFi, and he absolutely balled out, and like he's coming up with all these Hollywood passes. I think Stafford proved, and I remember talking about it at the time, that he's a quarterback that certainly when he came to Rams, that you could have argued at the time was borderline on elite level, and that with the right people around him, he could showcase his talents like to his fullest. And ultimately, he's now got a ring in his finger as a result of it. And, the whole thing, like you said, Tony, the bringing up that, or who won the trades, it's a score draw. A lot of people say. People going on the Lions won the trade. No, if the Lions had a ring, then you could argue they won the trade because they used one trade to rebuild their team and then win a Super Bowl. It's not happened, so they haven't. So, like you said, it's more a kind of even tie. The Rams wanted a ring. It proved it was just one piece of the puzzle was missing. Stafford comes in. We won the first year. The Lions have taken the last few years to rebuild their team. That yes, they're competing, but they're not winning anything yet. So, I mean, it's just going to be one of those ones. Anytime that the Rams and the Lions come up against each other, whilst Matthew Stafford is our quarterback, the press are just going to be, digging this back up again, aren't they, Andy? They're just not going to let it go.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to let it go. It's just the story of, the NFL at the moment. And like you say, I do feel both teams won. The trade, we got what we wanted to bring. Lions got what they wanted. They either got a quarterback who was a franchise quarterback for them, potentially, or if he wasn't, well, yeah, they could just ditch him and they were not going to be buried in cap hell with him like we would have been. And, they could have got themselves a new quarterback, but it's worked out for both parties. And again, it's the old classic, you'll probably see it during the season, Chiefs, Dolphins, whenever Tyreek plays them, it's always, who's won they're always going to have this comparison. And obviously the quarterback is one of the most important players on the team. So that is always going to come up. But, I think we just need to now let it go and just let the season play out. What's done is done. Let's get it done now and let's just win.
Yep. Elsewhere in the offense, Kyren Williams went 18 for only 50 yards, but got a touchdown. As a result, how did you feel that the run game held up, considering the injuries we've had to the offensive line through the game?
I think that's probably the only blot on the copybook, to be honest, is that we didn't get the run game going. And looking at the stats, the Lions did. But considering the amount of injuries we have, it wasn't bad, but obviously there's room for improvement. And I think once we get some consistent run game going, then that will give us more leeway to be more offensive. But it's a waiting game. We need to get players back on the field.
Yeah, I'll just add to that as well. The Lions last year had the number one run defense, so they're going to be a difficult team. That's their identity. They want to be building the trenches, make that you can't run all over them. That's their identity, and teams are going to struggle. So I know everyone looks at it and says, "Oh, 50 yards, it's not much," but when you consider a lot of teams, couldn't even get half of that against the Lions last year. It's not bad overall, considering that as well the injuries, as you say, we've picked up.
Yep. Notable mention on the offense is to Tyler Johnson for that massive gain from Stafford. I think it was the longest play in the game. I mean, he went 5 catches for 79 yards, but I think the majority of those yards were in one play. So obviously, Nacua went down. How do you guys feel about the wide receiver core this year from what you see in that game? So we spread the ball a bit. So 14 went to Cup, 5 to Johnson, 4 to Parkinson, 4 to Robinson, 4 to Nacua, and 3 to Williams. So, I mean, I know Cup, you'd expect him to get majority of the targets, but certainly spreading the ball around consistently there, guys,
Yeah, exactly. He's still spreading the ball around. Even his interception, I think that was just a bit of miscommunication between him and Johnson. Johnson went behind the defender instead of cutting in front of him where Stafford expected him to. But again, if he is, obviously he's likely to now be getting a few games while Puka's out. That chemistry again could build, and potentially, he's another weapon that we can use. During, he's going to give us that little bit of speed that, unfortunately, with Nacua and Cup, were lacking, that you can take tops off defenses. And I did shout him out before. The season started. Colby Parkinson seems to have slotted straight into the Higbee role that I was kind of predicting would happen. So hopefully that'll continue, and maybe we can start grabbing a few touchdowns with him as well.
Yep. Switching over to the defense, how Tony, how do you think the defensive performance was for the team?
Well, considering the big loss, I don't think we did too badly, actually. It's nice to see the rookies coming up with a sack as well. And, it's going to take a bit of time. But, considering we was playing the Lions at theirs, I think we held up pretty well.
Andy, your thoughts?
Yeah, like Tony said, I think overall we held up fairly well. Again, they've got one of the top 3 to 5 offensive lines in the league. It was really nice to see, Byron Young picking off from last season, getting a sack. Yep. Obviously, Jared Verse getting his first sack of his career is always nice to see, and that'll be a confidence builder. And even other players just sort of flying around getting things done. So it is good that we can see it. Obviously, I think my only concern is, as we've already pointed out, middle linebacker. We did seem very soft and squishy in that position with the 2 guards you've got out there. And whether or not we can maybe make a trade for somebody or pick somebody else up just to fill that room out, we'll have to wait and see. But that, I feel, is still going to be our weakness on defense for that year.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the stats, Quentin Blake led us in tackles and assists. Troy Reader, of all people, second on the list. That's a guy who is not known to know what a tackle is, but 5 tackles and 3 assists this week, and it just kind of rattled around the line. Roseboom, Curl, Tre'Davious White, and John Johnson third, kind of to wrap up the kind of top 5-6 guys on defense. I do agree with you what you said about the middle linebacker role, because watching the highlights, it felt like the Lions could get the medium gains fairly easily, but not too easily. There was times where we were stopping them, but they seem to be able to gain that 10 to maybe 15 yards, purely because between your front line and your secondary, Like, it just feels like that gap is still there in terms of like proper talent in the middle linebacker role. And like watching the highlights, I actually flashed forward to when we play against them in a couple of weeks' time, and I just thought like they love to throw 10 to 15 yard passes against us and just grind up like that, and it's just. I think it's weird because the last couple of years we've complained so much about the secondary on defense and worried about people like going long against us. But I feel like this year that's the main weakness I can see on the defense. That teams could literally, pick up basically like that 10, 15 yards consistently against us as it progresses. That's my only concern from what I've seen in the game on Sunday.
Yeah, but got to give the secondary some credit. They managed to hold St. Brown to just 13 yards. Unfortunately, though, we can't.
That's why I'm not mentioning them because, like,
unfortunately, though, we did let Jameson Williams go for 121 yards, which is his career highest. So it was kind of we seemed to be able to focus and lock one down, but we didn't seem to be able to do both. And that is still a little bit of a worry on the secondary that maybe we're missing. Maybe once Williams gets back healthy, we can maybe have two good corners that can lock down on either side, which may then help, McVay or Schuler to bring maybe the safeties a little bit closer to the line to sort of, give us that blockage to maybe stop the short game.
Yeah. Yeah, but in terms of the kicking side of it, so Josh Carty's first game for us, 2 for 2, 100%, an extra point, 44 yards long. Jordan Whittington was our kick returner. And for some reason, we've got Kyron Williams returning punts, but he had one return for 0 yards, so it's not too bad.
I feel with Kyron Williams, he's almost doing what we were doing with Cup a few years ago, which is just call for the fair catch and just catch the bloody thing, and we'll deal with it then. He doesn't, we're not going to...
It's getting someone out there that is going to, like, catch it every
catch a ball consistently and not do what, happened in one game where, I'm sure we'll discuss it at some point. He basically dropped it and kicked it back to the other team, which allowed them to score. So,
Yep. So just to wrap up the game against the Lions, like we're saying, guys, we got beat, but all things considered, positive, isn't it? Because, at the end of the day, we were, 10-3 down at the half. We scored 17 points in the second half. We came back with the lead, and like all maybe like you said, Andy, that interception drop by Durant, that could have been it. That just shows you how one play can, I wouldn't say cost you the game. It can totally turn the game on its head.
Yeah, my only thing, as we're probably going to hit on in a minute, is I'd have rather come out with a bigger loss, but not have all these injuries that we've taken because it's kind of affecting. But it's also kind of, I'm not going to say comforting, but it's kind of good to see that players are stepping in from depth and giving us, reasonable production as well still, which hopefully bodes well for while other players are out.
Yeah, and let's not forget, this is the first time we've seen all of our starters out there without one Aaron Donald. So I'm sure you guys will agree that in a post-Aaron Donald world, it's not great, but it's not as bad as maybe we first thought it was going to be.
I think we proved, even, a lot of analysts were saying, without Donald, this defense is washed. I think, all right, it's a loss, but, it was still a valiant, go by the defense. And I think we've shown a lot of them that actually there is still life in this defense after them.
Yeah. Would you agree, Tony?
Oh, definitely. I listened to a couple of summaries from the US broadcasters, and potentially this is a rehearsal for the NFC Championship game. Was a couple of people were saying, and that feels nice. Whether it's true or not is another matter. But it feels like even in defeat, people still think that the Rams are a decent team.
And that's a great take. That pundits actually believe the Rams have a chance, because even the year when we won it, we were written off all season. So for the fact that they're saying like, the Rams they've got a chance, all things considered.
Yeah, I think as well as Tony said, a lot of analysts, I know it doesn't mean much, but their weekly power rankings, even though we've lost, we've actually risen up the power rankings this week, because of how close it was and how we played overall, which is a positive sign.
And you're right, John. Even with that Super Bowl run, there was a lot of people still writing us off, even right before the Super Bowl. And I don't know if anybody remembers, but in the run up to that Super Bowl, I was on Radio 5 with Colin Murray at about stupid o'clock in the morning, and the Bengals fan, she was very excited. And to be fair, I'd only woken up about 15 minutes beforehand, and Colin Murray was trying to stick the needle in and say, "You don't seem very excited." And I'd practiced this and I'd written it down, and I said, "Well, Colin, like Thanos from the Marvel universe, the Rams are just inevitable."
What a line! What a line!
Yeah.
You got to have one line.
You click your fingers then, and just then logged off.
Yeah,
it did feel as though I was potentially jinxing it, but I just thank the Lord that and the football gods that it actually came through for us.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, like you're saying, guys, like the analysts in that and like the power rankings, they're fairly positive towards us. So long may that continue. And I hate to do it, but from a positive note to a negative note, as we now look at the injury report for this week. So big loss is obviously Puka Nacua, who has now been placed in IR for PCL sprain. Steve Avila is on IR as well, and so is Joe Noteboom. And then on top of that, Kevin Dotson's got a sustained lateral sprain in his ankle. He's day-to-day. He didn't practice today, I believe. Durant is toe injury day-to-day, and Havenstein ankle day-to-day. Just looking at the current, it's not updated for Thursday yet, but yesterday, Havenstein was limited. Roseboom was limited with a hip injury. Dotson didn't practice. Neither did Durant or Davis Allen. How big a loss is Nacua? Let's start there before we talk about the line.
It's absolutely appalling, John. My fantasy team is decimated now. It's appalling.
We see your first round pick then.
Oh dear, yeah. You must be crying at the moment. Then he's just completely decimated everything.
Yeah, it's just ruined, absolutely ruined. But yeah, it's ugly, isn't it? But I mean, every team always goes through an injury run. Hopefully, we're getting ours out of the way early. And if we're looking at Puka Nacua being out for 4 to 6 weeks, our bye week is week 6. So if we can get to the bye week in a relatively decent position win-loss wise, then that should give us a real pickup coming back.
You would hope. I feel like it's every year about let's get the injuries out of the way early.
I think the only worry is, like I said in the Discord, Puka throughout his whole college career couldn't complete a season healthy. Even when he went to, I can't remember if it was the Combine or the Senior Bowl, he had to pull out because he took an injury during it. So it's not, last season was literally his first complete season he's ever done in his career. So this is kind of worrying that, I thought maybe, he was over it, but it appears that things are starting to creep up, and I'm just hoping that this is just a one-off and it's not going to get to the point where he is going to start having multiple injuries again, because it's going to be such a waste of his talent. But like we say, it's next man up mentality. We had it, Tyler Johnson did it for us. This is a chance for other players now to step up and maybe replace him. And as Tony said, hopefully we can get him to the bye week, bring him back after the bye healthy. I just don't want them to do what they did with Cut, which is just chuck him back in too early, and then he's not the same player. I'd rather we just let him get to, week 6, get the bye out the way, and then maybe bring him back, give him that extra week or two just to get a bit healthier.
Yeah, I think another thing for me is a Cup Nakua 1-2 out there is quite a bit of a threat. I know we spread the passes about a bit, this week, but it puts more pressure in Cup because they'll put more bodies on them now because they've got less of a threat elsewhere in the wide receiver core. So that's not to say Cup can't step up and, show some of that, fancy footwork that we always see from him, to pick up amazing plays and big gains for us. It's not to say he's not capable of that. It just adds a bit of pressure where I think the way Nakua played last year, a healthy Puka Nakua is equally as good a threat as Cooper Cup can be out there for us. So it's one less kind of target out there for us.
Yeah.
But like you said, I think that would be my worries, like you said as well there, Andy, that just like we did with Cup last year, we just rush them back for the sake of rushing them back. Like post-bye, we've got Raiders, Vikings, then we go away to the Seahawks, then we've got the Dolphins, Patriots, Eagles, Saints. So it's a kind of mix. What on paper should be a mixed bag. So it's one of those ones you can kind of maybe test the water with them the first 2 weeks back. But then again, that depends how the next few weeks go, because we don't want to be in a position where, say 1-5 going into the bye, we need some W's on the boards, and then there's that, you're saying, pressure, for maybe to if he's fit enough, put him in. There's a difference between being fit enough and being game ready. Yeah. Is what I'm trying to say, and I can agree with that as well. That it needs to be managed right, but I suppose it's one of the ones we've had seasons gone by where Cup has been the only man for us in the wide receiver core to target. I guess maybe Parkinson, like you said, could step up in that Higbee role and be a kind of breakout threat then for us now.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to start looking at spreading the ball out a little bit more, especially as you say, because Cup is probably going to start picking up the double teams, which is, Robinson can step up, Parkinson can step up. We can maybe get the ball moving in different ways, and potentially also, if Cup's getting doubled, that means they're going to have to pull somebody potentially out the box, which then may free up a little bit more space for the run game as well to get going.
Yeah, not kind of on the run game coming to it, because you can't have a run game without an offensive line. Avia, Noteboom are a bit of a losses in that offensive line, and then we've got Havenstein as well, who's injured. And I understand we have made some moves to try and kind of shore up the line, but is there a concern, guys, that we're going back 2 years ago here where we could be essentially working with a makeshift of the offensive line again? Or there is that worry there that it's going back 2 years?
Potentially, yeah, but we did see some of these guys step in, even in the Lions game, and they still looked reasonably competent. I don't think the depth is as bad as it was 2 years ago. Bo Lim has been getting a lot of write-ups, a lot of praise, even from McVay, about how he's doing. So there is still options. Obviously, Jackson comes back after next week's game, so that's potentially our left tackle back sorted, if everything goes to plan. So, I think it's not as bad as it was 2 years ago, where we were literally, scraping the barrel. It was getting to the point, I think, they were practically putting up, ready to put a sign up outside SoFi saying, if you weigh £300, please come in. We're going to test you, see if you can actually play. It's not that bad. So, it's not nice having the injuries, but there is positives, that the depth. And I think the Rams have realised after 2 years ago that, with Stafford's history, they can't go as cheap in the depth, and they're going to have to sort of flesh it out a little bit. And, this lad that we've got from the Eagles as well, the Eagles do have a good record of developing linemen. So hopefully, you might be a decent guy who could maybe step in to one of the positions to help. So I think, like I said, we're just going to have to see how it goes. But I'm more confident than I was 2 years ago that we can still hold up and function as an offense.
Okay. And just moving on elsewhere in the league, Tony, did you catch any of the other games at the weekend? Concerning me with the late game. Did you catch any of the other ones?
Just because I've got a couple of NFL buddies, I did try and watch the Giants game, but even on the shortened highlights, I didn't get to the end of that. It was just awful. But I did watch earlier today the Colts Texans highlights. That was a cracking game, wasn't it? But other than that, no, I've not really had the opportunity to dip in and out. But there certainly seems to be a lot of entertainment on offer this season.
Yep. And did you catch any other games at the weekend?
Yeah, I watched the Chicago-Tennessee game. That was interesting. You know, Caleb Williams kind of, I don't know, just didn't look like what I think everyone expected him to come out. And, you know, the Titans could have potentially won that game if Will Levis didn't make the most boneheaded play in the history of the NFL.
Did you see how he reacted to it?
Yeah.
Like, why, God, why?
Yeah. It's like, what were you doing? I think even his head coach this week has kind of flung him under the bus, going, I don't know what the hell he was thinking he was doing. I just don't get it. You know, but and I watched the Cowboys-Browns game, and it was just nice to see a certain person getting beat. I don't like the Cowboys, but I certainly don't like somebody else even more. So I was happy he got beat and got trashed and just looks like garbage.
Just rattling through some of the other ones. Obviously, the opening game of the season was the Chiefs against the Ravens. That last play, oh my God. Now, I know they talk about like football's like literally a game of inches, but this was millimeters. Like,
yeah,
that was nuts. Just shows you how little it takes to lose a game. Like, it's a shame. And then we had the Eagles, Packers in Brazil. Where the Eagles came out in top 34-29. You see the guys that both teams were told not to leave their hotels at all the entire time they were in Brazil.
I don't get why the NFL put a game in Brazil. You just asking for trouble. And the fact that, you know, well, you know, again, Packers, their QB's injured now. Potentially he could be out up to and including our game against them, depending on how bad the injury is. So there may be some joy for us, at least.
It's back to the complaints about like the playing surface again, because it's a funny one. We talked about this quite a bit last year. I think it was after the Rodgers injury. In fact, in week 1, we were talking about this, Andy. I'll come to you in a second, Tony, your thoughts on this. But the whole like grass, what they call you know, what they call grass. Well, no, do they call it turf? In fact, they don't call it. They call it turf. And you know, they absolutely hate playing in turf, whereas they love playing on AstroTurf. And I always find it funny because here it's the opposite. Like, people prefer playing on grass, you know, as opposed to, you know, AstroTurf. Tony, I'll just bring you in there. Like, what's your thought on the whole like grass versus Astro debate?
I don't know. It's difficult. I mean, I think with AstroTurf, you get consistency, don't you? You know how the ball's going to bounce. You know the surface isn't going to give way underneath your foot and all the rest of it. But it does feel artificial, and I know it is artificial. But you know, it's difficult because from a player's point of view, you want consistency. You don't want to be turning your ankle in a divot and things like that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It is tricky because if you're going to play the international series, you're going to have to play on a lot more grass.
Yeah. Apart
from when you play at Tottenham. Everywhere else you play international series, you're going to have to play on grass. And that was the major complaint from Brazil. And the reason they played in Brazil is because of the time zones. The time zones work.
Yeah.
For international series. That's why they've gone to South America, because the time zones work. They'd love to go to China, but if you look at the time zones, it's an absolute debacle. You can't make it work for any of the US time slots. It's absolutely impossible. But yeah, the turf, AstroTurf question is difficult.
I think the thing for me is these is professional playing surfaces, right? And if anyone's ever stepped on like a proper football stadium's like pitch, it's a carpet. You know, if it's well looked after, it's like playing a carpet. So it's not like you're down like, you know, the local park where it's not a flat surface. Even if the grass is cut even, it's still wobbly, and you know, you could see why people could get injured. It's the thing that always gets me is that it's still a flat surface. It's still like you'd hope it's well maintained. And maybe it's because the nature of the game that the feet are dug in, and it's because of the turning, that if the ground is just soft, it creates that kind of risk for them. Whereas on the kind of artificial surfaces, the ground is you can't basically get like bedded into the ground. It's just like you said, Tony. It's consistent. It's the same everywhere. So you've got that even at that proper 100% even surface, that risk is there. But for me, like if you're playing on the Astro in a wet environment, I actually find that more dangerous because of how slippy it can be. You know, and as a football coach, like being out there with like 25 of our kids running about, like and you see them slipping and sliding everywhere, like it's a weird, for me, it's a weird one.
I think with NFL stadiums though, it's not true AstroTurf. It's this weird sponge mix, isn't it? So and it soaks the water in like soil does, so it doesn't actually get as icy and slippy as like I remember, you know, our AstroTurf, even growing up as a kid, it was literally like playing on a carpet, wasn't it? You know, the amount of burns you'd get out, carpet burns at the end of a game, it was ridiculous. Whereas over there, they don't seem to suffer that as much. They seem to.
AstroTurf I remember playing on was literally just a carpet with sand thrown on top of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas now it's like fake grass with black rubber through it. Aye.
Yeah, so I think it is a bit different. I think as well, you know, as you say, I think as the twist and turn and bits of the ground, although it may look super smooth, you go on even a football pitch at the end of a game, there's bubbles. You know, you see them at half time, they're putting divots back in and stuff. So throughout an NFL game, I think that's what causes the risk, is that, as you said, the ground's not even. It's not as the game goes on. And you know, I think by the end of a season, it's just, you know, as much as they work on it, it kind of is a mess, which is why they do have to tend to replace them every couple of years. But I don't think anybody's ever it's going to be a debate forever, I think, as to who's going to do what.
Yeah, I guess some teams prefer one surface over the other, I guess. But I'm just kind of rattling through some of the other results. Bengals went down to the Patriots. Kirk Cousins didn't go off to a good start in Atlanta as he went down to Steelers. Our opponents this week went down to the Bills, but it was a closely run 34-28. Dolphins were lucky to have Tyreek Hill as they beat the Jaguars to 17. Have you guys seen the footage?
Yeah.
You know, my wife actually was talking to me about this earlier on, and she was like, the way Hill has behaved is wrong, but the way the police officer handled it is worse. Yeah,
you know, it's catch-22 of you know, I suppose when you're dealing with someone who can potentially be carrying a gun, you know, you're gonna have that little bit more of a attitude because of it, you know. But yeah, he didn't help himself either by being a bit of a gobby little so-and-so and just having a bad attitude.
That's who Tyreek Hill is, isn't it? But I actually said to my wife, maybe the officer was a Bucks fan. I don't know.
Maybe so. Yeah, he's a Jacksonville fan or something. You know, he's like, right, if I get rid of Tyreek Hill, that's one less weapon against us this week. Let's arrest him.
Perhaps. But I mean, it's going to cost him his job. But that's by the by, I guess. So moving on, week 2, the Rams head out slightly east into the desert as we take on the Arizona Cardinals in SoFi East. How do you guys see this game going this week?
I think even though with the injuries, I do still feel it's going to be a win for us. I just have a feeling.
I don't want to jinx this. But we haven't lost in Arizona since 2014. The only time we've lost 3 times since 2014 to the Cardinals, and they've all been at our place. I am confident. I think we seem to have the Cardinals' number, and history seems to be with us. I'm pretty confident about this. I'm not saying it'll be easy, but I'm pretty confident we'll come back with a dub.
But all three of us do say in the predictions this week that we are going to come back home to SoFi with the win.
I will say as well, Arizona, much like us now, their 2 starting offensive tackles have gone on to IR as well.
Oh.
So, that's kind of, and one of their starting quarterbacks is questionable for the game as well. So, they're dealing with injury bug as much as we are. So, they're going to be weakened just as much as we are. But as Tony said, we've not lost for so long. Hoping we can keep that record going. And I do feel we will do.
Anyone you're looking, you'd highlight is potentially going to make, well, I will say take Cooper Kupp. Well, in fact, no, we'll go to defense. Anyone from the defense you're looking to kind of, step up and have a kind of breakout game?
No, not really. I think it'll just be as normal for us as it was last week. Maybe we're going to have to scheme a little bit because, unfortunately, as we all know, Kyler Murray does seem to enjoy his best running games of the season against us. We never seem to be able to stop the guy from, running off for like 85, 90 yards and a couple of touchdowns. So, that there may be a plan hopefully in place to sort of keep him in the pocket. But I do feel with better edge players, with Verse and Young, they're going to set the edge better and not allowing that escape pocket to get out and about, which then hopefully will allow Turner and Fisk or whoever to get in via the middle and sort of, keep Murray in the pocket and make him have to beat us with his arm, which we know he can't do.
Do you think that's because he's so tiny that we lose him in the long grass?
Potentially, yeah. I think we need to go get the NFL to go and check the height of the grass at Arizona and see what if it's regulation. But the dude just does seem to always run off on us. But if we get him in the pocket, you know what we need to do? Actually, we need to just put a PlayStation with COD outside the dressing room. We'll never leave to play the game anyway because we'll be doing that.
Joe, just when you said that, Tony, the reason I started laughing was it partly because of that, Joe, but it's because I seen a video. I think it was on X this week, and it was once you watch Kyler Murray run, you realise he runs like a toddler, and then you can't unsee it.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
We'll try to get away from his parent, and once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
I want to come on to in terms of our running game. Last time we came up against the Cardinals, Kyren Williams ran for 143 yards. Do you guys think, Tony, I'll come to you first, do you think we could expect a good performance on the ground from Williams AL?
Yes, is the easy answer. Because we didn't do so well this week. I think there'll be an extra focus in training on actually getting the run game going, which will give us a better opportunity than to target our wide receivers when we want to.
What do you think, Andy? Are you expecting a good performance on the ground from the Rams, and especially Williams?
Yeah, I feel so. That they're soft and squishy on the inside. Still, they've not really improved the interior of their defense from last year. So I do kind of expect, normal service on that one. But I will say, I don't know what was happening last week, but I'd like to start seeing a bit of Blake Corum getting involved as well, and like to start getting that guy some touches as well, just to add that little bit more dynamism to the room as well and, help grind this game out.
Yep. The last time we played the Cardinals, it was 37-14 to us. Just looking at the offensive stats, like also with that amazing performance by Williams in the ground, it's more the wide receiver, and it's touching back to what I was saying about earlier on about like kind of spreading the passes about. Last time we went there, Kupp was only 3 for 18. And Tutu Atwell, who we've not seen any of, was 3 for 76 and led us in the air. Is this potentially one of those games we could we could call a bluff with Cup? And you've seen Tyler Johnson at the last week there, and he potentially is capable of grabbing a good few yards here. Do you think the secondary for the Cardinals is still that much a weakness that some of these kind of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 guys that are stepping in up now could have a breakout game, Tony?
Yeah, it's more than possible, because I'm not saying we can rest our star players, but I think we've got the potential, the opportunity here to bring more players into the mix and actually spread it about a lot more than we would normally. Yes, it's a divisional game, but I don't think it ever really feels like a divisional game for me. It's always like a happy road trip that we like to do every time, and it's. I hate to say this type of thing, but it does feel as though we've got their number, and this is a happy weekend that we can always look forward to. But as you say, it's not always your star players that you want to bring into the game. You want to use them as a fake sometimes, and that often seems to work with the Cardinals.
Yeah, just looking at the stats here this is obviously the last time we were in Arizona. I'm just looking at here and looking at the defensive stats. Guys like Michael Hoyt, because I can pronounce his name properly now, Christian Roseboom, they're kind of like leaders on the defense, along with Ernest Jones as well, who's also no with us. So when I look at and the reason I'm bringing this up is because when I look at the bottom, Aaron Donald was actually like the least performing person in our defense the last time we went there. So I think that when you see the stats from the last time we went there, like you're saying, this is the kind of game that these guys that are not necessarily fringe players, but these guys that could be doing with the confidence boost, it's kind of setting themselves up for the rest of the season. After having played pretty decent last week, this is a game that, without a doubt, you could say that they can shine in. Would you agree, guys?
Yeah, potentially. Again, it's going to be a bit of a challenge this week for our secondary because, although Marvin Harrison didn't do much in their first game, he has the potential to go off, as probably one of the best wide receivers to get drafted in the last God knows how many years. And a young lad that I liked, that I wish we'd picked up last year ourselves, that was on my guys list, which was Michael Wilson. So potentially, we could end up with, having to cover 2 really good players. But if our front can do what I expect them to do, I think Murray will be flustered, and much like certain other quarterbacks, if you get them flustered, you start to get inaccurate and wild, and that will allow plays to be made. So hopefully we can get a few sacks in, and keep that guy quiet and in the pocket for the game, and keep Harrison and co just dead.
So just to wrap up about Sunday, so we're all predicting a win. Tony, give us a score prediction.
Crikey. 28-10.
Andy?
24-14.
27-17, I'm going to go.
Okay.
Without a doubt, a win for the Rams. So, fingers crossed it's a good performance, and fingers crossed it's a W on the board. And speaking of W's elsewhere, the Sleep Deprivation Bowl 2024 has officially got underway. And there is now 32 teams taking part in this, folks. I get across 4 conferences: the Vermeil Conference, the McVeigh Conference, the GSOT, and the FDP Conference. Can you guys guess the acronyms there?
Yeah, but we can't repeat them.
It's not a family show, you're all right, Andy.
That's all right.
I've just worked out the FDP. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know it. YouTube can be very funny with certain things, so it's best not to.
Put it this way, folks: if you don't know what FDP means, the image for the conference is less need, and that's all I need to say about that.
Yeah.
But how did you go on this week, Andy?
Yeah, managed to just scrape a win by something like 0.3 something of a points. So, but I think it's one more win than I got all of last year, so I'm happy. I've started off in the right foot, and like a Del Boy, maybe this is our year to finally win one.
You never know. I managed to win by 0.32 in the end, thanks to George Kittle of all people. But Cooper Kupp, my number one pick this year, got me 32 points, so I'm delighted with that.
Nice.
And this year, folks, the LA Rams UK team actually have a team competing in the Sleep Deprivation Bowl. And just for the avoidance of doubt, if the LA Rams UK teams wins, every single member of the LA Rams UK team is getting a Sleep Deprivation Bowl and a medal to win. It's not one this year. We're taking it all home. So we are in the FDP conference, and let's see how we got on this week. We lost to Nakua Matata. We lost 152 to 144, which is disappointing.
Yeah, Tony. I think if we lose next week, we might have to sack the manager and get a new head coach in.
Yeah, that sounds fair enough.
Oh, yeah. I'm not even managing a team. It's just sitting there. Just to run through who we've got. I mean, we're not short. Look at the bench. We would have won if we. Maybe I should manage the team. Okay, so with Lamar Jackson at quarterback, Taylor from the Colts and White from the Bucks, running back Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Kyle Pitts, Olive, Pittman. Our kickers, Aubrey from the Cowboys, and we've got the Steelers defense. We've got 12 points this week, which is not bad. Bon Banj, Reed from the Packers had 33 points. And if he'd played, we'd have won.
Yeah.
Right.
Get your act together.
It's bad enough I've got to try and manage my own fantasy football team. I've got you guys in my back.
Oh, yeah, we're going to run you back, mate. We're the front office.
Yeah. So prediction, folks, for anyone listening. At what point in the season is John going to get sacked as head coach of the LA Rams UK team? And who is going to replace him? Get your answers in a postcard. So, yeah, we got to be this week. So, it's early doors. We'll see how we got on this week, folks. But it's interesting. 32 teams in this year. We only had 2 conferences last year, so it's great that so many people were championing the bit to get involved in it. And as we forget, there's no point because it's only week 1 just passed. As we get through the season, folks, we'll try and give more in-depth updates about how everyone is looking, and especially then when we get into playoff season, because I'll have to actually explain how we need to work it across 4 different leagues to determine the winner. We'll keep closer tabs on it, but fantasy football is always exciting. Tony, how do you go on with your fantasy football team?
Well, I've been playing in the same fantasy league since about 2015, and I lost quite heavily. My players were complete from before Monday Night Football, and he had still 2 players left to play, and was it Stephon Diggs that did me. So we lost quite heavily, actually. Oh no, it was Deebo Samuel. Of course it was. Yeah, and he had a fairly decent game, didn't he? So yeah, he had 5 receptions, 1 rushing touchdown, and 54 reception yards. So yeah, not pretty.
It's early days. We'll see. I wonder how long it'll be before we start giving up in the fantasy teams and just be like, no, I don't want to talk about it.
But week 5, week 6. Depending on how next week goes, given how I was last year, mate, I might have been giving up by next week. Like I said, I only checked it just before we went live because you actually mentioned it. I was kind of like, oh yeah, that. I'm expecting to have lost, so you know.
But I mean, based on last week and hopefully this week, we'll have positive stuff to talk about next week when we come back to celebrate what hopefully should be a win in Arizona. Looking forward to hearing the massive Rams fans, because we always travel really well to Arizona, don't we, Tony?
Well, yeah, on that note, actually, is one of our older LA Rams UK fans, who's actually Australian, and came to the Barrow Boy and Banker. He's out in Arizona with his family at the moment, and he hit me up during the week to see if there's a tailgate on at Arizona. So I went straight across to Twitter, not X, and managed to hook him up with a Rams tailgate in Arizona, which is nice that we can pull that type of thing together.
Yeah, nice.
Excellent. I think we actually had a couple. Sorry, on you go.
I don't fancy that temperature though. Is it going to be like 39 degrees Celsius over there on game time? It's like, oh no, thanks.
That's rough.
Yeah, that's rough.
We actually, just as it popped in my head, we actually had a couple of questions come in on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Matty Four Trees asked us, what's going on with the amount of injuries we're getting? Do we need to look at the strength and conditioning of our players? And do the power rankings actually mean anything, or is it just crap?
I will say, with regards to the injuries, it harps back to, do you play players in the preseason? Just to get them a bit more flexible, game, ready. It's kind of a big shot going from, even training and these. I know we do the like joint practices and stuff, but even a lot of that, it's very limited in what you can do. There's not really much hitting or anything. So,
there's usually plenty of hitting, but it's
not what they want, not the sort of hitting they really want. But a lot of teams now are starting to go back to the give play. Even first team, some preseason snaps. Some teams were even like a drive week 1, 2 drives week 2, and 3 drives week 3. Just to sort of get them up to speed and a bit supple. So, is it some of that because McVay's nobody plays apart? Does that have a bit of a detrimental effect on players' health and performance, because week 1 is the first time they're going full speed, full contact? And I think it's just, like anything else, sometimes it's just bad luck. Teams seems to be throughout the year, there will be teams every year that have that injury bug, that bad luck, and it just seems to have, I thought we might get away with it for a few years, but it seems to have very quickly, rolled its ugly head back up. As for power rankings, they don't really mean much. It's just a case of where analysts think you are at that particular time, compared to the rest of the league. And obviously, at the end of the season, you want to be up there and win it all. But if analysts are watching us and sort of keeping their eyes on us and saying we're a potential dark horse threat, that's good just for the team, that the team's actually being noticed.
Yep. The other question we got in is from Dan Flint. I guess it's a question to us all. When will the Rams UK meetup / watch party be? And this is one that's it's a difficult one, folks, because we are literally scattered to the wind.
Yeah, we are all scattered to the wind. But I mean, it's something we could talk about. Maybe not even if we don't do a physical meetup, we could always do like a Discord watch party thing. That's an option.
Yeah,
you can do. Where we all hang out in a chat group with the game on and just sort of. One option potentially if we can't do a physical meetup.
Yep. It's not to say that if anyone
it's interesting
to organise physical meetups, reach out to us. Like I said, we're all in pockets, so
yeah, it's interesting because we was actually hit up during the close season by a couple of venues wanting to host us, and when I went back to one of them, who they're part of a chain and they've been allocated the Rams as their team for this season. They show the 9 o'clock games, but when I questioned them, they actually close at 11 o'clock. So they're never going to show the full game. And I think if I remember correctly, we only actually have 3 6 p.m. games this season.
Yep.
And you're like, so you'd tape us all out at 11 o'clock at pretty much half time. And like, what's the point of coming to you? unless we can get there for 6 o'clock. And they were on the Lancashire coast in the middle of nowhere. I looked and there's no travel lodges or Premier Inns anywhere near it. And you're not going to get back to the civilization at midnight on a Sunday from there.
No, not unless it costs you a small fortune, probably in taxis and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just the message you're talking about there, Tony. Again, they're like, okay, you can stay in the building as long as the closing team in, but they'll let you know 5-10 minutes before they're finishing that you'll need to go. It's like, but what the game? The game?
Yeah, exactly. It's got to be, if you're going to do it, you've got to be there.
Yeah, but like you're saying, Tony, I think that's the problem when you're a West Coast team. Like 3/4 of your games over the season are going to probably be late games.
Yeah, I've got a mate who's a East Coast supporter, so he's like, "Oh yeah, all my games are like 6. I'm in bed by 9 o'clock watching my game," and I'm like, "Yeah, just shut up and go away, will you? I don't want to hear it."
Yeah, I was just trying to work out what the 6 p.m. games. I suspect the Bears game, and then there's the Patriots middle of November, and the Jets on the 22nd of December. So, I mean, the 22nd of December will be a good one to do, but I'm not sure if I've got the wherewithal to actually organise it this season, I'm afraid. But it is definitely worth doing, and I would definitely go back to the casino in Manchester where we saw the Vikings Thursday night football game, which was a bit of a shootout. That was a cracking evening. I think we had about a dozen, maybe 15 of us. I ended up catching the first train back from Manchester back to the east coast of the UK. What time was that? I think the game finished at about 3:30, 4 o'clock. And I think the first train was like 5:30, 4:45. So it's worth doing, but it's tricky.
It's tricky. Yeah. It's tricky with our kick-off times. But it's something like we as a team we can take offline and see if there's some kind of virtual things we can do in the meantime, because it's certainly not a case that no one wants to meet up. It's just like you said, Tony. It's difficult. The best way we can arrange a meet up is if the Rams come to the UK, because then we're guaranteed it's not a late game.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I mean, yeah, we can discuss this, and obviously we'll hit you up on Discord and other social medias if we do figure something out.
Yep.
In the meantime,
leave that one with us, folks, and we'll see what we can do and try and get something organised.
But again, if anybody out there has ideas for meetups and stuff, put them in the Discord, and we'll
absolutely
see what the feedback is on it, and see if we can maybe get something. Even if it's you guys just want to meet up, as a unofficial thing.
We're always happy to try and help Rams fans out with stuff like this. So if anyone's ever doing anything like that, like shout us out. We'll do everything we can to help out. At the end of the day, we're all one community as well.
Yep.
And as I've came across, like so many people of other teams, like that have said, "Oh, we're all the Rams fans." Then I said, "Why you support them?" Like everyone supports the other teams, and says, "No, we're there. We're just in the shadows, waiting to come out into the light."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
That's it. But on that note, Andy, Tony, absolute pleasure as always, guys, talking to you guys about the Rams.
Yeah.
Whilst it was a loss, it's still a quite positive start to the season. And, fingers crossed, it's positive again next week, guys?
Excellent. Right. Have a good week, guys.
Hopefully. Yeah, have a good week. And we shall see you all next week, hopefully with a nice big fat W and smiles on our faces.
Fingers crossed. But thank you to everyone, as always, who listens or watches the podcast. Don't forget, like, subscribe, share, follow, all that usual jazz. Join our Discord server, join the community, be part of it. And let's go Rams. Catch you next week, folks, for another edition of the LA Rams UK podcast. Take care and good night.